We can begin to see that Kate's hands are beginning to clench slightly. There's kind of a double bump here showing that there's muscles being tensed here as well. She hadn't got a cheery smile from Kate at this point. Are you two having a bit of a laugh about us rather than with us? I'm Judi James and I'm a body language and behaviour expert and author. I'm going to be looking at what Meghan and Kate really feel about each other, and we're going to be looking at some photographs that will show the body language that will give you evidence of that. This was one of the early days poses at the Trooping of the Colour, and already you've got Meghan looking absolutely splendid. I mean, a big name in America. Big CV of work behind her, but she's having to stand behind Camilla and Kate. And there were rumours at the time that Kate was being cold to her hair. I think not particularly, and we can probably see here that Camilla's bending right round to include her there, and Kate's joining in, and they're probably joking slightly because we can see that Meghan's smiling with that spaceship hat on. But nevertheless, it's very much a, sorry, you've got to stay there. And I don't think many people have had that situation in their married lives where they literally do have to stay behind the other women in the family. Then we had the Fab Four, and excuse the one raised eyebrow of cynicism at that point, because we knew that there was four of them, but they weren't very fab together at all. This is pretty much the first sign that we saw that it's not going to work. Kate, quite heavily pregnant, Kate being Kate, sitting back in her seat, very elegant, very quiet, very softly spoken, and again working at that royal pace here. She and William had already been working on this charity and these charities. They'd spent a lot of time on them, but it was slowish. You could hear from the way that they were talking, very much in the royal way of being slow and thorough, etc. And then the camera went over to Meghan, and she went at warp speed. I mean, she presented this most amazing CV. She wasn't like most royal brides where you're very demure and, oh, you know, I'm submissive, etc. She sat and explained, I've done a lot of work before, I've done campaigning work, I can bring this to the party, I can bring that to the party. Her whole pace of delivery was different, urgent, passionate, and you could actually see a bit from the body language of the Waleses that sort of, okay, this actually was our project, but you're a little bit taking it over, I don't know. But we also got with the body language, although ostensibly we've got some mirroring here, I think Meghan was very good at adopting the kind of the body language trappings of the royal look. Although even here we can begin to see that Kate's hands are beginning to clench slightly, and we can see that the knuckles are going a bit white, and we can maybe see with Kate's smile, you know, it's very much Kate, yes, that's absolutely fine, but they weren't really sharing the humour here particularly. And we saw a lot during this that Meghan had her hair that she was, a lot of the time, she was dropping her hair over her face, and that's a kind of cut-off gesture, and it meant that Kate couldn't see her face. And even at the point when they were saying, oh, were there disagreements, and William went, oh yeah, Meghan dropped her face and she was giggling behind that. That kind of takes you away, it's hiding you, it's hiding your response from Kate to a certain extent. And I wonder if that looked a little bit, or felt a little bit like, are you two having a bit of a laugh about us rather than with us? It clearly deteriorated, and we saw a lot of the outings where there was a kind of reflection possibly of the fact that the two women were using rictus grins, not getting on so well. By this Christmas outing, again, it was rumoured that it was just the women that didn't get on, but I think if we look at William and Harry's body language, we might have got a clue at the time, although we didn't really believe it. But what we get here is a performance. Now, I've never seen until this point the royals do what are called denial rituals. Denial rituals are what politicians and celebrities usually do. It's often when there's been a rift in the marriage or something's happened, and then they come out in front of the cameras and they prove that no, actually we're absolutely fine, and you get those kind of rictus grins and a bit of a performance. And this in a way is what these two women, or at least one of them, decided to do here. In front of the cameras, they walked towards the camera. Kate walked across to Meghan and engaged her in this kind of happy conversation. And it was interesting that Meghan clung onto Harry's arm here. She wasn't going to let go. She turned her head sideways to look at Kate. But I think even if you just look at the two facial expressions here, we're not seeing huge amounts of affection. If we look at Kate's cheekbones in particular now, with an authentic smile, you see what's called apple cheeks. They go very rounded, but there's kind of a double bump here, showing that there's muscles being tensed here as well. Kate not showing her teeth in a smile is as rare as hen's teeth. You just don't see that. And although they're using eye contact, it's not a particularly friendly gaze. So although they were showing, I think probably for the sake of the rest of the royals, that no, we're fine, let's clear it up in one gesture, I don't actually think they were fooling anybody at this point. Then we see probably the worst body language between the two women, and this was the Commonwealth service, and this was shockingly bad. Harry and Meghan arrived first. They were put in the kind of, not the back row of the stalls, but they were behind the front row of the royals. They were about to leave the royal family. It was their last appearance before they went. Harry was nearly in tears at this point. Meghan, again, drawing on her skills as an actress, very upright. And when Kate walked in to take her seat, you did see Meghan, and it was quite difficult to catch it absolutely 100% from the angle, but it looked very much as though Meghan did a social smile towards Kate. We couldn't see Kate's expression from the back of her head, but from Meghan's response, I think we could tell that she hadn't got a cheery smile, if any smile, from Kate at this point. We had this outing after the death of the Queen when, surprisingly and quite shockingly, the four of them came out at Windsor to look at the flowers. And this was very last minute. I remember my jaw absolutely dropped when I saw the four of them together. Kate and Meghan arrived together in a car. It was very interesting that William and Harry stood to one side because they'd arrived in a car together. Meghan and Kate got out, and it was the first time that I've seen that level of firmness from Kate. She got out of the car and she just walked away, and she walked over to Harry and William. We can see here, if we look at that spatial, this isn't just spatial distance between them, it's also between her and William. So she was willing to move away from her beloved husband as well, to make sure that she was creating the space from the other two. William was pretty much put in the role of buffer and airbag at this event, and he was the one that kind of called Meghan over at one point and sort of brought her into the group. But it was so fascinating that Kate was not going to play ball here. She wasn't going to do the let's play nicely stuff anymore. She was going to really let her feelings be felt here. Also, she was in deep mourning as well, but it was so firmly and emphatically done. And even at the point when they moved around to look at the flowers and Meghan kept trying to move, it looked like towards William and Kate to join them, you could actually see Harry at one point sort of calling her back, probably felt the frost. So a very definitive description of how these two women ended up, and it will be, at this point, impossible for me to imagine how they're going to actually knit together. I don't mean physically knit, I mean knit together as two women, if Harry does decide to come back and bring his wife with him. So if this is where they were at their last meeting, distant, almost permafrost between them, and we compare it to when they were at least trying, when the spatial gap was smaller, when they were trying to smile at one another, but clearly the effort and perhaps the lie has been given up here, and we're seeing a more honest response between the two of them. They tried, and I think we need to give them full marks for that. They did try, but it's not really working, and they have a whole ocean between them right now.